Great. Well, good afternoon, folks, and welcome once again. There's been quite a number of people that have joined us in the last few minutes, so you're very welcome. And we'll just go through a couple of housekeeping slides together now, and then we'll get straight into the content as the hour arrives. Once again, it's great to have you with us. We are, in this content, as you know, through the registration, are going to focus on making tax digital. Now, we'll unpack more about that, the surroundings, the market that we find ourselves in, and why we find ourselves together in this position at the moment, and also some of the things that firms are doing already today that is working for them and their clients, even though there's still something of a bumbling mess coming out from the revenue to the profession and indeed to the business owners. A couple of housekeeping points before we move forward. You will find that you can use the control panel that's on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you cannot see that, there's a little orange tab that you can click that will expand that out for you, and you'll be able to choose the audio settings that work best for you. You might prefer to use your computer and the speakers, but if you would like to dial in and use it on the conference line, you're very welcome to do so on there. And at some stage during this presentation as well, we'll be doing a live demonstration of one or two of the features. So all being well, the technology and the screen shares will come together and you'll be able to see that as well. Now, we are using video on this one here, which means that you can see me, hopefully, but I cannot see you, so don't worry. You can continue to eat that sandwich in the background. But if you want to move the video around on your screen, you should just be able to click it and drag it and put it in the place that works best for you. So who am I? Well, my name is Dan Richards. I've been working with the profession now for around 17 years, and it's been a great journey so far. And the ability there to, and the understanding that's been gained over those years on all manner of different topics, from sales and marketing of firms through to the software and the mobile profession that we find ourselves in at the moment. A great number of consultations with firms. And so what we're talking out of today is born out not just of our own experience, but some other key thinkers and commentators in the marketplace, and also that of very many of the firms that we speak to on a monthly basis, many hundreds of those. And you can be sure that what we're speaking out of are practical ideas that are delivering for people at the moment. Once again, the questions box is in there. I've just had somebody, actually Jim, say that he's lost the audio feed. So perhaps once again, you'll be kind enough, folks, just to let me know that the audio is coming through okay. And Jim, I apologise if that's just your own local connection, but hopefully the rest of you can hear okay. Great. Thank you for confirming that, folks. That's very kind of you. Super. So who are My Firm's App, and why indeed are we putting on this content for you at the moment? Well, we're a software company. We're first and foremost. We provide solutions to firms to help them engage with clients in the mobile space. But we also have a very close working relationship with the revenue, and have done ever since they first began to mute the ideas of making tax digital, because we wanted to promote the firm's interest in this. We want to make sure that you are put first in this relationship with clients and with the obligations they're going to have to do things on a quarterly basis and in a digital fashion. This is something that's working for firms globally with the solutions that we provide, and so we're speaking out of experience where others have maybe a little bit further down the journey as you are so far as well. And our promise is that we always put you first. So this is about making sure that you are not a conduit, that you are not being sold through, but we are making sure that you are first in the relationship with clients. Some of you will be familiar with Steve Pipe, and one of the things that he said recently was this. He says, I have an admission to make, that I didn't really get apps for accountants. And then he had the pleasure of sharing a webinar with us, and you'll see below how he says that now that he's completely convinced, not just the potential of the notifications technology, the way in which you can communicate through this, but how every single accountant who wants to remain relevant must take this kind of technology really seriously. So this is about sharing the MTD updates, but also helping you with practical recommendations and not leaving you in the dark on that. You'll also be pleased to know that the solution part of this presentation is fully compliant with HMRC. It's the only solution, by the way, for firms as their own app that is compliant with HMRC. So you've got something here that has been through the testing process there already. So what will we cover? Well, we're going to look together at how every firm can take a simple action to serve your clients now and to help them prepare for the quarterly reporting regime, as well as gaining that marketing advantage. We're also going to look at the headline updates as to how we've arrived here in the first place, and what HMRC's response has been to the recent consultation, and also specifically and importantly look at the experience of other firms, because there are some already who are trying to turn this to their advantage, trying to serve clients today in a way that's producing good value for them and good results. So to summarise, it's a big challenge, isn't it, what we've been going through? And you only have to read the blogs online at Accounting Web and other similar places to that and find that there's a lot of very split opinion, some beginning to talk about the positive side of making tax digital. But for the most part, this is something where firms still see, and quite understandably and quite rightly, a significant challenge. And so we're going to try and unpack ways around this that are going to help you with that particular challenge. Now, there is a flip side to this, and I hope you take this slide in the spirit in which it's intended. There is a muddy puddle, as we refer to it, that HMRC have created around making tax digital, where many hundreds of firms who look at this with us, and there's been around 10,000 firms who've been through iterations of this webinar over the last 18 months, have told us how they're taking a watching brief. And that's understandable. It is. It really genuinely is. But there is a danger, isn't there, within that we can leave things too long. And there is a very real sense at the moment from those who are speaking to us that we have reached that point. We're actually doing something about this now, even though there's still some unanswered questions from the revenue, is an important thing for firms to do. And so more than ever, there is an opportunity for you to turn this to your advantage and to begin to care for clients. And if you wish to begin to attract more into the firm by doing these things as well. So not all of this needs to be bad news. Some of what they're stimulating actually is a good thing for the profession. Some of what they're asking around quarterly reporting, doing things in a digital fashion, simplifying the record keeping process, the digitization of those things is really key and is a best practice anyway for firms. And you'll see there's a LinkedIn thread from today that I came across with Peter Disney, who runs a practice called Wood and Disney down in Essex, commenting on here on a QuickBooks at one of Alex Davis's posts. And actually one of the positives, they're referring to an article from Nicola Ross Martin here. So one of the positives here is how actually if the user can and the client can do these things on an ongoing basis anyway, there's a tax benefit, there's a tax saving for them just by the simple nature of good housekeeping. So there's a way in which you can begin to take a leadership position with clients, whether you be a small firm listening to this or a large one. And the more that you can take that leadership position with clients, the more comfort and confidence you're going to be able to breed to them, aren't you? And whilst there is still a lot of confusion around the market, we look to you, our professional advisor, our most trusted advisor, to give us the guidance, the best that you can. And so there are things that you can do today that will help us all to prepare going forward in a lot more detail. Now, I'm just going to share a short video with you here from a chap called Ian Rogers, and he's a practicing accountant and just had a couple of thoughts when I bumped into him recently around this as well. So let me share this video with you and we'll pick up again in just a minute or so's time. Let's try that once again, folks.
Hi, I'm Ian Rogers from Property. We've been working with my firm's app for quite a while now, for North Star and Wisdom. We're based up in North West Leicestershire, and I suppose our ethos in the practice is really to embrace technology. That's the way that everything's going. We found the client's reaction to the app very positive. And really enabling them to access our online portal, access the cloud-based software that we provide for them. I think with the proposed changes we make it tax digital, it's going to happen after the consultation period is over now, that it's going to come out in some format, and basically it's going to compel clients to go onto some form of cloud-based software. I think obviously us with the app, giving them access to it, on a mobile device, which is more more and more into houses now with our mobile devices is really going to help our clients. So I've found a very positive experience with my firm's app, developing our app. They've been very accommodating, and the changes, we've tweaked it quite a few times, and they've been very helpful accommodating to enable us to do that stuff.
Folks, thanks for a couple of the comments that came through just there. I've just been picking those up now, showing that the video quality, or the sound at least, came through poorly. I'm sorry about that. It normally works well on the platform, so my apologies that didn't come through clearly for you. What we will do is make sure that there's a resource pack that's given to you from today's webinar, and we'll make sure that a copy of that recording is included for you, so you can see what Ian was describing about their experiences of these things as well. So my apologies for that. Now, if we have a look at how we found ourselves in this position, then it's important to broaden the scope a little bit beyond where the revenue themselves are, because what HMRC are doing is tapping into a norm now in society. And part of that norm is because of this. If you have a look at the speed of adoption, then you can see how that the smartphones now have become adopted 10 times faster than we did with personal computers back in the 80s. And you can see the rest of those points on the slide just now. So the speed of growth has been really significant as to how we've all adopted these smartphones that we now spend so much time working on together. And the revenue have seen that, and they said, well, if this is where society is now is the time to begin to move into this environment, to follow their own agenda. Some of it is good, some of it is questionable perhaps about where we see things as a profession, but nonetheless they are being able to tap into this. App Annie and Ofcom, two global commentators and statistician companies, as you know, see how now that mobile are the first screen. So as a society, you and I, we are turning to the mobile more than we are PCs and laptops. We find that Gartner show that the penetration of smartphones has now reached 90% across the UK and indeed other mature markets like the US, Australia and others. And so if we've got 90% penetration and these devices are everywhere, well, they are, aren't they? If you have a look at out of the window, as I am doing just now, I can see people walking down the street on their telephone. If you sit in a traffic jam, you can often see people looking at their phone. Someone last night was describing how they go to dinner and they see that people have got the telephones on the table in a restaurant. Children use them, grandparents use them, we do our banking, we take pictures on them. It's normal already. And so with these things being spread around and with the time being spent on these devices being cross-generational as well, it's not just the millennials any longer. This is the realm of all generations using these devices. Then it means that Deloitte, in one of their most recent reports, have shown that now in their survey, almost a third make no traditional voice calls in any given week. Now that's amazing, isn't it? I can tell you I'm not in that third. I tend to use my phone a great deal for telephone calls. But if we've got people now who are using these smartphones for the tools, the messaging, the functionality that's on there, then that behoves us, doesn't it, as a profession to say, well, let's go meet people in that arena, and if the HMRC are developing for that, well, let's find a way of us making sure that the profession is put in the middle from there as well. Quick question, sorry, it's just come through from Simon. As a laptop user, what smartphone would you recommend, as I'm confused as to what there is on the market? Simon, either an Android device or an iPhone would be the two. Windows have a very small market share, so the stuff that can work with them is not very good at the moment. So either an Apple iPhone or an Android device. That's only down to personal preference and budget, I have to say. Both of them are as good as each other. I use an iPhone and I like it, if that helps. So to respond to mobile, then we really need to have an app. And the reason being is that the time spent on mobile devices now is chiefly through apps. And if you think about it, it's not too surprising, because this is something which the manufacturers have built them to work in that way. So now if we have a look at this next slide, you can see on the right-hand side, it shows that 90% of time spent on a smartphone is spent using apps, only 10% of time through the mobile web environment. So websites are important. Having a mobile website is very important, but their role has changed. And so as a firm, it's not enough just to sit with that any longer, but we need to have an app that is delivering content to clients and tools in a way that they can use most of all. In 2016, last year, there were over 200 billion downloads of apps. Now that's a pretty big number, isn't it? So for any one of us left thinking, are my clients really using these things? Are apps really being engaged with? Folks, we're late to the party. This is something now that across society and across the world is normal. 200 billion downloads. That's an awful lot. It shows, therefore, that the total time last year grew by 25%, the total time spent in apps. Now that equates to more than 900 billion hours. Now that's a pretty big number. I still struggle to get my head around that one a little bit. 900 billion hours of time spent in apps. And so if you can create something that becomes your firm's interface here and allows you to provide solutions for the revenue, you can see why they're approaching this direction, but you can see how you can put yourself well and truly in the middle and provide ways of serving and helping clients in this as well. So to summarize, mobile is dominant, and we believe that you must own that real estate. It's important for you to be centered in that relationship, and making tax digital is only going to further this necessity. Now, the content we go through in just these next following slides to catch up on the headlines as to what HMRC have been saying is not just from ourselves, but from other key voices, people like Tony Margherelli, people like Nicola, Ross Martin, Accounting Web contributors themselves, plus thousands of accounting firms who have directly shared their thoughts. And so that combined thinking is what is going to help summarize this right now. And let's begin with David Gork. Now, you can read this quote on screen in front of you at the moment, but what he's describing here is how the HMRC system has quite simply not kept up with technology. And actually, I think this is one of the best bits of writing I've seen. There's some questionable ones, if I'm honest, that have come through, but this one makes a fair point, because if you read the bottom sentence as you get down there, then the point that he finishes on is, and says, well, now compare that to the way in which we carry out other activities. And he's got a point. The revenue systems is rather antiquated when it comes to the digital side of things. There can be a way to improve this. However, they are motivated to follow this through. And so here they've got some £6.5 billion, he says, is being lost each year as a result of errors being made by business. And I make no apology for seeking to tackle that. So here's a very clear agenda. There is a financial incentive for the revenue to see this through. So despite protestations and despite the consultations, HMRC are seeing this through. And there's also a mixed agenda, isn't there, around the accountancy firm's role in this. And there's lots that's been written about this. And so here they talk about how a business may keep a perfect set of manual books, but for example, in compiling their tax return, they would need to manually transpose those records either to their tax return, their VAT return, or both, or pay their accountant to do so. Under MTD, the software would make this manual activity automatic and save the business time and money, freeing up time to grow their business. If you look at where they think that saving of money is going to come from, then the article that was written in Mr. Osborne's day only recently is looking at how they can say these changes are a central part of a package of reforms that will save businesses 400 million in accountancy fees and other costs. And that's a big number, isn't it? So there is an agenda here to deal more directly with the business owner. Hence, we see such importance in you as a firm having the tools at your disposal that will enable you to deal with the changes that are being pushed through. Sorry, someone just here, James, is asking for a copy of the slides. Then yes, that's absolutely fine. You will get a copy of this presentation at the end. Hopefully you'll see the slides coming through clearly as we're presenting as well. And so here we go right back to the beginning. What did the revenue set out to do? Well, to create by 2016, last year, 5 million small businesses and 10 million given access to these digital tax accounts. They said that they're going to be accessible through the digital device of their choice. And if you look at the right-hand side of your screen here, that second paragraph, that it will also be a major help for small businesses being able to link their accounting software together. So there is a joined up circle that's being created here between the revenue, the accounting software, and the client. And the question is, where does the firm fit inside this now? How do you keep yourself involved in that digital relationship? Well, thus far, it's been causing a great deal of concern, hasn't it, and confusion, even from people like Andrew Tyree and others from the Treasury Committee raising this concern. Many people, more than this, and in various different petitions, wanted Parliament to debate this and to put a stop to it, which they duly did, and duly said, no, thanks, we're going to push for on this as well. Push forward on this as well. Sorry, I just read someone's question that came through there about 4 returns rather than doing 1 a year. Misra will come to that in just a moment. So they released a consultation document. I do hope you made your voice heard through that. There's still the opportunity to write to the Treasury Select Committee and write to your MPs, and as a profession to voice your concerns, and we heartily encourage you to do that, because the more that we make our voices heard together, then the more that they will have to take note of some things, and certainly there has been some concessions through the response to that consultation so far. So what we've also got here is the revenue saying, look, we want to make tax digital. We are going to put note at the end to the tax return. We're going to create software solutions for this, but of course they're pushing that into the environment for the software companies and the professions to solve that challenge together. And I borrowed these slides from the ICPA, who are kind enough to share them for one of their recent updates on a similar topic to this. And you can read these comments in front of you, can't you? There are challenges here. There are significant problems that people see with what's going through so far, yet the revenue are pushing on with it. There's a beta program, if you like, that's being released in April of this year, and it will be from April 18 that they are going to want us all to do this. And so we need to be developing things now that are going to start to work for us. Mark Abbs at Blick Rothberg says that this is an ambitious project and a time frame to roll this out. We've got Andrew at RSM saying that it's hugely ambitious and a real danger of slippage. We've got a delegate from a previous version of this who said that they have no confidence that HMRC will actually import accurate data. So that all of these concerns still remain, but nonetheless the clock is ticking and the revenue are saying we're pressing on. So within those concerns, we need to find ways to work together and to help on this. Even just recently, the government have been urged to delay the rollout, but nonetheless they're pushing forward. In fact, more than that, they are releasing additional funding. So in the last budget, they have pushed through the £71 million worth of new funding. And so with more than 4 million non-employing businesses in the UK who are not yet using software, the ICAW put it at 78% of those businesses not yet using any accounting software. How are you going to serve these people? And as Peter Wood was saying on that LinkedIn note at the start, if we can get them using things in a simple way, using the digital capture that can be made through their phones already, this will help them to do things in an accurate and a timely fashion to bring it forward. And there are some challenges that remain. You know, can we operate in this work if we do what we're doing already? For most people, the answer is no, we can't. Can we, in the time available, expect to turn a large number of clients into accomplished bookkeepers? No, clearly not. But equally, do we want our clients to be responsible for that mess? No, again, we don't. So it's finding a new way through this challenge now that is really important. And so what were some of the things that were not changed? Well, at the moment, we are still launching forward from April 2018. We don't see that shifting within the timetable. They will have 1 month to make the update. The year-end compliance update will have to be made, and there will be a 12-month soft landing for penalties for any late filings as people get used to this new system. There is going to be some stuff that still needs to be decided. You can read those bullet points on screen at the moment, and some of those things obviously are going to take some working through. The good news is spreadsheets are going to be permitted, but there are caveats around that. However, we have ways, as you've seen with our compliance already with the HMRC, to help that work for you. And there's questions over whether the threshold is going to be set at 10,000 or raised. Clearly, the revenue want to keep that as low as possible for all the obvious reasons. So will it or won't it change? We simply don't know, but it quite possibly won't. And so we're hoping to know more by 2017 on these things, but you can imagine that project or that timeline might slip a little further as well. That means basically that with the outstanding concerns raised, but yet with a fixed timeline of April 18, we can either continue to wait and see what happens, or we can take action now. And my encouragement would be to take that action now in a way that's going to really work for your clients. So some of the things that we've learned from the consultations, that the cash accounting is going to be extended, that there will be a penalty regime, as you would expect, to make sure that people comply with the new reporting setup. That they say that internet access is not a problem. To be fair, they do have a point. This sort of thing is pretty widespread these days, and there will be 1 or 2 exceptions to that, but they really are the exceptions from there as well. And if we have a look at some of the recent Q&As, these were questions that were raised during the consultation and answers from the revenue themselves. Let's just share some of those that we thought were the most salient ones. So the question raised was, making tax digital for business, MTD, FB, be mandatory for everybody? And it's saying here that it will be mandatory for income tax self-assessment from April 18, from April 19 for VAT, and for corporate tax from 2020. There are specific exemptions currently, and the government will take other time to consider those. But yes, it will be mandatory from April 18. The consultation document seems to take for granted that basic software will be able to read and interpret receipts accurately without human involvement. Is that the assumption? HMRC are basically saying, and remember, we're going to give you a copy of these slides, so you'll have these things to read at a later time as well. But they're basically saying that they don't foresee a removal of human involvement in the short term, but that technology over time will improve to automate that data collation and entry process. That is simply saying that that's the status quo today. The sorts of solutions that are possible now have a bit of human involvement, but do still save a great deal of time. Can we get a really clear, definitive list of what HMRC requires quarterly? Well, here they say that they're going to keep the level of details to a minimum, and therefore it's been based on the data requirement in the quarterly updates on the existing categories in this self-assessment form. So long as we can capture that data through on a timely basis from clients, then as a profession, as a firm, you're going to have what's required to put into the digital tax reports on a quarterly basis. Has the Treasury Select Committee meeting with MPs and tax experts had any impact on timelines? MTD will start in April 18, so the short version of that is no. However, they are still considering some of the other outstanding issues around it. When will the legislation be passed and published for this to happen? It's going into the Finance Bill in 2017, so look out for that, and that's why it's still important, if you can raise a voice with the Select Committee and with your local MP, then it's well worth doing so. Is there any progress on the definition of free software? There's a long answer to this one, as you can imagine, so you'll be able to read this at a later date. And at the moment, they are working with software developers like ourselves to come up with solutions for that. Some of these solutions are already in place, but they're going to keep working. Clearly, we can't deliver everything for free because that's not how anyone stays in business. So the revenue are a little bit optimistic about what they might be calling free software, and we're going to have to find a way through this to work. If we can be anchoring things into your firm still, that is the most important aspect, I would suggest, out of all of this. So a lot of these things are covered in the resource pack that I said that we're going to make available to you. So we're having a headline view of it just there so that we can update you on the current setup, but you're going to get more detail from this. And what that means is the change that we find ourselves with at the moment is, if you'll excuse the slightly tongue-in-cheek picture, that thus far you've always been the trusted advisor, and for good reason. You're the reason. There's good reasons why we turn to you first for all these sorts of things. But at the moment, what the revenue is saying, well, hold on a minute, because of these devices, we see the opportunity to go straight into the client base here, to the individuals, and to work with them directly and to remove you from that process. And so there is a way and an importance and a decision that needs to be taken now as a firm that says, no, we're going to own this space. We're going to put ourselves back in the middle of this relationship with the clients. So we'll let them log into the tax accounts. That's fine. We'll use the software, cloud accounting and otherwise to link into it. That's okay. But let's do it through your firm yourself. And excuse me, as you continue to go through this sort of approach with clients, and you engage more with the cloud software, which a number of you are doing so, you'll notice that the add-on community, some of which is really very good, by the way, and helps for all of that to come alive, is exploding. There's many, many different add-ons available now. So you find yourself in a position of creating, if we're not careful, a confused and disparate environment for the client. Excuse me, taking a quick drink. So therefore, what is the solution to this? Well, the solution is by bringing together all of this into your own firm's app. Paul, sorry, it's not gin, sadly, it's only water, but maybe I'll move on to that shortly. My Firm's app here brings all of this together back into your own control. And what that looks like is this. Rather than you choosing the various online systems and pushing those into the client and saying, hello, Mr. Client, there's some good stuff for you here, and there's opportunities for you to use things that are going to help with you. rather than that becoming multiple things for them to engage with and have lots of apps they need to download, then you can actually bring that together and say, don't worry, we can have our own single app here and we can bring everything together into that environment. Rob raised a question here as well, saying, is it's HMRC's benefit to get accountants out of the way and encourage late filing errors, etc.? Rob, I think you could well be right on that, and that's part of what we're suggesting here by saying, look, as you can see on screen at the moment, if you bring this forward into your own app, if you control that relationship still, then let's let the revenues tell us the systems they want us to work with, but we perform that still. When I say we, I mean you as the accountant. And so that way you're not being removed from the process, you are being well and truly centered into that as well. The ICAW have looked at this with us as well. We're the only solution, the only app product that they have been through and done their due diligence on, and we're the only globally compliant one with them. And more than that, they look at the whole ecosystem and they say, look, folks, this represents a commercial opportunity. In fact, they go on in what their statement said to talk about customer service opportunity as well. That should not be missed. And it's not without precedent. We work in Australia, and in Australia, the ATO, the Australian Tax Office, are a long way down this journey, so much so that they have already launched their own app. And that now means that there are accounting firms, good accounting firms like this, who are offering the Tax Office's app to their client. Now, that doesn't seem to make sense, does it? Because who is managing who in this relationship now? And there's been quite a reversal of trend in Australia now, where the firms are really working to draw back that control and to own it within their own space again as well. Because as a client, I'm thinking, well, who am I engaging with here? And who has got my data? And who is responsible for serving me in this space? So, ladies and gentlemen, the time to do something about this is now, no longer to take a watching brief with what you are doing on there. Clients are already phoning their accountancy firms and asking them what are they doing to help them prepare for this and what they're going to need to be able to do. And so they're finding now that firms are, some of them are not having answers to those questions, and those people are phoning us and talking to us about these sorts of things. So if you can take this leadership position, as I mentioned at the very start, with your clients, you engage and serve so much better. You give confidence within the confusion. And for those like the Peter Disney's article on LinkedIn, you find yourself creating a leadership position in the marketplace as well, where people are more attracted to you than they are to perhaps their incumbent accountant who hasn't got a handle on these things just yet as well. Rebecca's asking a question just quickly. So are the quarterly updates due to be made directly from the taxpayer rather than allowing an accountant or agent to do that on their behalf? Rebecca, the revenue want to make that possible, yes, but we are saying that actually that should come through you first and foremost. So the software that you're making available and the collection points through your own app means that as I'm going through and snapping my receipts and I'm using the mileage tracking and all that sort of good stuff, that the data is going to you first, you then give permission for that to go into the tax account thereafter. And that forms, we believe, the very best relationship still and the best solution of the technology, rather than the revenue and the accountant having direct access together, the taxpayer having that direct access together as well. Robert found at Together Accountant that when they launched this as well, it gave him instant credibility. So it's an interesting outcome from going down this route, that he found that as a smaller firm, it gave him instant credibility when competing against larger firms in his area as well. As for existing clients, they're always keen to point out how useful they are finding the app and the solutions that he's giving them in place at the moment as well. Oliver's asking a good question here. Are HMRC expecting people like teenage plumbers to know what expenses are tax deductible? No, Oliver, I don't think they are, or that's probably the type of thing that they're hoping that people are going to find themselves receiving penalties for on that sort of thing as well. However, if you can be getting the teenage plumber to use the app, which they're very comfortable with, and send the data to you first, you can then decide before it goes into the revenue from there. And that's the nub of this, again, similar to Rebecca's question before. It keeps you in the middle as well. Rebecca's saying that 9 out of 77 clients use bookkeeping software at the moment. Only 2 of those use it correctly. It's a fair point, Rebecca. Interestingly, actually, and I'm going to show you this in just a moment, how some of these things work, because if you can get people to go use the tools that they are already more comfortable with, then that has helped to improve both the adoption and the accuracy of usage of those cloud software. So I'll come to that at the moment. While I've been talking, hopefully you've been able to read Richard's note online as well. Philip here says that they've been delighted by the results and what it's been able to achieve for them. And Tony, the chairman, says that they endorse this solution. They operate for around 1,000 members at the moment, many of them smaller practices. And so for their smaller practices as well, they're working closely with us to make sure that this is still delivering the solutions that those people need. And so here's how it can put the accountant back in control, your own branded app, your own solution that clients can engage with all the while. And you've got things like GPS mileage tracking. So to your question a moment ago, sir, you've got here something where people can press a simple button and it grabs hold of the mileage journey for them and logs it as they go through. You've got photograph expenses on here where it uses the camera and a couple of quick questions, builds a file through the app that they can then export and send to you on a timely basis. And with the concession on spreadsheets having been made, then that's great news, because the output of these as it stands at the moment will send you the report through the app directly to you in a spreadsheet form that you can work with and put into any accounts production software, tax calc, BT, BTC software, cash flow, QuickBooks, Xero, Free Agent, and all the others. You can just import it straight into there, Sage, and so on, so that you can make these things work nice and easily. Now, folks, with the power of the screen share, I'm hoping that I can give you a quick view, because a couple of questions have come through about seeing what that would actually look like. So it's perfectly timed. Let me see if I can show you just now what that would look like on the display. So if I expand this, then my hope is that you will be able to see on the screen what's coming through. No, it doesn't seem that you can at the moment. So let me try once again. Bear with me, folks. Thank you for your patience on this. Let's see if we can get that to display better for you. And no, that's not wanted to come through. So I won't waste your time on that, ladies and gentlemen. We use an external webinar platform for this. Normally it works really nicely, but it's live, isn't it? Anything can happen when you're live. So we'll show you up that firm. Oh, sorry, someone's just saying it was coming through. So let me go straight back there then. And let's have a look at this together. Folks, let me know if it's coming through for you. That would be wonderful. So here you can see an example of the app. And what you've got here, you can see it. Wonderful. Thank you, folks. That's great. So here, if I take you into this particular section here, you've got something like the mileage tracker. So all the client needs to do is press the green button to start trip. It grabs hold of the GPS on their device, follows them around their journey. It logs in the background so they can still receive a phone call or use the sat nav if they want to. And when they finish, they just press end trip. And that's it. Now, if I'd actually traveled somewhere, it would have popped up with a note to add for the journey. But otherwise, automatically, the start location, the end location, the distances, date, duration, and so on is all showing absolutely fine inside the control panel. And all they need to do is press the export button that you can see here on the screen, and it will send you an email at the end of the month with all that data on. Now, if they have forgotten to use it, as on occasion they might, that's okay. They just press the manual entry and they fill that in as well quickly whilst they remember, and then that's all going into the file. So when they press the export button, it attaches it to an email ready to send straight over to you, and that's all that the person has to do. That's it. So simplicity of usage for the end user is key within this environment. If I take you into the receipt manager, for example, and again, remember this is compliant with the revenue and what they are looking for with making tax digital, and this is free for the client to use. So within your monthly license fee you pay for the app, this is free for the client. They just press the green button to photograph a receipt. They scroll up and down, choose an appropriate category, and it opens up their camera. They take a photograph of the receipt, or on this occasion, the table in front of me, and then they quickly answer a couple of questions. So within just a few seconds, they've collated all the information that they need on the go, and that was Peter Disney's point earlier on the LinkedIn thread. They're doing it as they go, and that's the time saver for them. And they're capturing the data that is going to help them to save more tax anyway as they put through more allowable expenses. Remember, this is coming to you first and foremost, so you then get the control to say, yeah, this is good or not, to when you finally submit into the tax account from there. For those of you using cloud accounting solutions like Xero and QuickBooks and others, they're all available inside the app for the client to log into and to use there as well. So you've got all your solutions in that one place. So we will come back to those sorts of things in more detail shortly. Let me just close that down out of the way now, and hopefully you'll see my screen as well. Mark's just asked a question. Let me just answer it quickly. What are the commercial arrangements with the various cloud providers? Does each practice negotiate separate deals with each of them and pass them on to the client? Yes, whilst it's all accessible through the app, you would agree your own commercial arrangement with those cloud providers. So we provide the interaction point for you, but you would continue to have your normal relationship with them from there. Now, what you see on screen here is a push notification. The reason I'm showing you that is what you see here is an ability for the app to capture your client's data and indeed your non-client's data. So you know exactly who's got it. You can write to people through your app, and that in itself is 5 times more effective than using email. So you've got a tremendous way here to engage with clients in a way that's so much more effective than using email, to encourage them into the systems you want them to be using, to draw the data back out from them, and for non-clients who download your app over time, you can see precisely who they are and nurture those relationships. What's more, you don't just have to rely on doing that through a control panel, but you can link this with your emails. So as you email a client like normal, it can automatically detect if they have your app, and if they do, that very same email will pop up on their phone screen as a personal message as well. 5 times more effective than using email without you having to change your working practices and enabling you to get all your team involved on that as well. Matthew, I think that's probably just answered your question, hopefully. That's came through as well. So Paul Dunn talks about this being the age of connection and about how if you can bring all this together, then you've got the age of connection working for your clients. You can bring them closer together without that being a complex thing for you as well. And sorry, Mirza just asked a question here about, do you need a license for each client? Not for the app, no. For any cloud accounting software, again, as per normal. For the app, you have a single license with us, unlimited usage for your clients thereafter. Roger's asking, will they send it quarterly, the data through the app, or do they do it every day, in which case you'll be inundated? Good point, Roger. No, they tend to do it monthly, actually, so that you're doing things on the go, and at the end of the quarter, you've got what you need to submit it from there. But you can go from there. This doesn't, using the systems that we've got in here, Julie, to answer your question, is not more expensive for clients at all. In fact, it will save them time and money. If you use cloud accounts software as well, because that's what you choose to do with those clients, then yes, that may increase a monthly fee direct to them because that's what you've chosen to do with them. But to use the app as it stands, then no, it's not expensive for them at all. Mark Wickersham here speaks about how using mobile technology can deliver so much more value than we've ever done before. So whilst HMRC are lighting a fire under this conversation for making tax digital and encouraging us all towards this at the moment, people like Mark here are saying, well, look, this is an environment that we're in anyway, and if we can get the service level right through here, then we can as a firm be very, very well rewarded as a result. Michelle is asking about you use Sage 50 or QuickBooks for PC. Will the app be able to work with these? Michelle, yes, it will, because the CSV export that comes that I showed you can be imported into desktop or cloud-based software. It doesn't matter. So there is a versatility to this that will work across all of the different systems that you might already have in place. It's a Camille. Many of you will have come across him, particularly at places like the 2020 events. Speaks about how to be the trusted advisor in this 21st century with all the different things going on. Then you want to be able to engage with clients in the space and in that mobile environment that they are spending their time as well. Ben Smith at Accounting Web talks about how digital is getting messy. You remember that slide we looked at earlier with all the things shrunk down into the app, and with the revenue exacerbating that at the moment with making tax digital, he says here's how you can anchor your firm in the center ground as well. And you'll be pleased to hear that Alan Wilson has said that the process for setting up the app has been incredibly easy. And for a very time-poor director like himself, it was very easy to use. So folks, we hope that will be the exact same experience for you, that you can get something in place that's easy to establish now, that is going to provide immediate benefit to your clients, that's going to help them to do things on a quarterly basis in an accurate way, get that data to you in a way that you can use today without having to change any of your existing IT systems, and is compliant with the revenue for making tax digital. Julie just quickly has asked a question, but we own the license, so the clients have a sub-license to access it. Julie, if your question is referring to your own instance of the app, so if you're going to have your own app that you give to clients with all of your own branding, then you pay us a single monthly license for us to build you your own version so that it can be in all your own branding and styling. Let me give you a quick example of that whilst we're on screen. So you can see here's another accounting firm's app. It's all in their own branding and styling, and there's lots of different ways in which that can adjust. So that's what you pay us for. You can then give it to your clients and indeed prospects, and as many of them can download your own app as often as they like, use it as much as they like, and there's no license to them per se, and there's no charge to them either. I hope that clarifies that point. Philip's asking here, won't this inundate us with so many emails? No, Philip, quite the opposite. You're getting controlled input here from clients. That is sending the data through to you in a collated fashion so that you're getting a single file with all that information on from that client ready to operate with from there as well. Folks, there's quite a few questions coming through, so let me help answer those as we're speaking. So let me just expand this view so I can see them better. I want to help make sure that you get what you want out of this as well. So let me just scroll down to these more recent questions that have come through, and wonderful. Here we are. Okay, thanks. Mark, what are the commercial arrangements? Yeah, we've answered that one. That's great, thank you. And Matthew is saying, is there an ability to feed emails through into the app? We spoke about that one. Paul is asking, we seem to be expecting clients to be comfortable using this, but I don't believe I would be comfortable using it. For example, we use QuickBooks Desktop a lot, but can Sage, albeit I don't like it, or can use Sage, sorry, but have no knowledge of Xero. I'm also not normal as I have no mobile phone. Are we really going to tell all clients they must have a smartphone? Paul, it's an interesting question that you raise. I think the short answer to your question is yes. However, the more helpful answer to your question is clients have smartphones already. Now, you might be one of those 10% at the moment, but remember, with the smartphones being distributed as greatly as they are, then they are already being used. And so the tools that you're giving people to use in this environment are tapping into where people are comfortable at this particular stage and will be helpful to them. And ultimately, they're going to have to find a way to work within this. So the simplest way for them to do that is the way in which we're describing together at the moment. So very happy to chat more about that one-to-one afterwards if you would like to. And then let me just go down to these next questions, sorry. So Philip is saying, each bill taken as a photo, will it come as a separate email? So Philip, to answer your question, again, you're going to get that single environment, single email that comes through with all the data listed for clients in there. The images can come across as a separate file. It's the data that's the most important part. Simon is saying here, so you use the camera to photograph the receipts. The data is consolidated in the spreadsheet, which is downloaded to the accountant on a monthly basis, and the existing accountancy software links it to provide the HMRC returns. Simon, very eloquently put. Thank you. That's exactly it. There will be other options as the HMRC tidy up their own systems, but yes, that's hitting it on the nub at the moment. And I'll come to the pricing questions in just a moment. There's a few of you asking those. Let me just go to the more detailed ones as it stands. And I've answered those other ones already, which is great by other people's questions. And Matthew's asking, how will it work with external applications like Xero and so on? You will be able to log into Xero through the app, and Receipt Bank, as you specifically name them, is integrated into the app. So they can use Receipt Bank if they're already doing so within this same platform as well. They won't need a separate app for that as well. And will this be a total end to the agent accountant, or will we need individual logins for every client? Oliver, that's a good question. So that's more not app related, but HMRC related. It looks like you're going to be able to work on a client's affairs, but whether you'll be able to get agent access is yet to be discussed. At the moment, being able to work on an individual basis looks like it will be possible, which is one of the concessions they made in the consultation document there as well. And Lawrence asking a question here, quite a big one. Let me go through this. Let's see if I can help. For PAYE, it just didn't work. It said there was, sorry, when you tried to log into the revenue, it said there was an error Then you try to use online chat with the revenue to resolve this. They had no idea what to do. If this is what it's going to be like, then it's going to be a disaster. Fair point, Lawrence, yes. When I clicked on the page, it just didn't work. It said there was an error. When I tried to use, they had no idea what to do. Any views? Yeah, I think it's a fair point, Lawrence. I think there's going to be a lot of teething to happen on this. I think it's going to be a bumpy journey, in truth. But if we can make the parts that you and I can control together easier, then that's only to everyone's advantage, isn't it? So I think we need to prepare ourselves for a bumpy journey with this, with some of the stuff the revenue are going to be doing with it. That's inevitable. We remember it with RTI. We see it with auto-enrollment. It's going to be a similar experience, I imagine, with this as well. But let's make the parts that we can control today as smooth and as simple as possible. Sam is asking about how secure the data transfer is. Very is the short answer, Sam. I can go into a lot more detail about that, about the global compliance that we have and the infrastructures behind it. But to answer your question just now, yes, it's secure. And Julie's asking about older clients. It's interesting that, Julie, there's a firm called Stephen Farrar Associates, and he was explaining something to me the other day in a different fashion. And he said to me, sorry folks, I've just realised with the time as well, I'm conscious of the time that we said, so I'll continue to answer these questions if you'd like, and then I'll come to the last point in just a couple of minutes' time. But he said that it's entirely because his clients are not very tech savvy that they like using his app so much. And you see, I'd never really thought of it that way around before, but he was very adamant on it. He said, my clients love using the app because they're not tech savvy. On a personal basis, I was sat in my living room recently. My youngest daughter, Elizabeth, she was sat by the fireplace playing on my phone. She's 7 years old, on a game on there. We looked around the other side of my living room and her great-grandmother was sat there updating her iPad with the family photos from that weekend together. So two opposite ends of life, both using the same technology. And so to answer your question, yes, they're going to need to do this. It's not age discriminatory. Revenue want everyone to do it. And so they're going to need to use the technology that they have just there as well. Folks, I'm just going to pause on those questions for a moment, but I will answer more again in just a moment. You'll be pleased to hear that this is one of the top products to watch as by Accounting Today as well. So again, it's got a lot of people in the market testing and experiencing these things right now. And Ian Donaldson described seeing My Firm's app solution as one of the most exciting things he's seen in his career. And so my hope now, folks, is that you can choose from one of the two questions here, and I will continue to answer these other questions in a live environment. So just choose, and I'd like every one of you, please, to select from one of these two options. Either we'll have a free telephone walkthrough with you and help you see the app and chat through your own circumstances on a one-to-one basis, and I'll happily do that personally for you and make that time available. So just simply type free trial, please, into the questions box, and I'll make sure that we get that arranged for you. For those of you who've been looking at this for a while and would like to get started now, we do have a quick start offer that makes this really simple, really painless for you. We can come together with a financial reduction to support you in that as well, and your app will be live within just a few weeks' time. And to do that, you just click or type quick start offer, please. Now, people have been asking questions about the price. So let me just confirm that for you now. There are various options. They start from £95 a month for you as the firm. Remember, no charge to the client and unlimited usage. And they go up to £319 per month, which is the most that most firms have to pay. If you're a very large firm, then there's enterprise solutions to suit you, so we can talk about those offline. But for most of you sub 10 partners in your practice, then the very most that you would spend is £319 a month to get a whole array of things that are working and producing a terrific return on investment for you. And I would suggest, what can you get for £300 a month that's going to deliver such a value to the firm with Making Tax Digital, with marketing benefits, with client engagement? So please choose one of these two, a free trial or a quick start, whichever one suits you best. And I can see lots of you writing those in now, thank you, and we'll be sure to serve you with those. Whilst you're writing those in, let me come back to some of those other live questions that people have been asking. And David here is, we've answered that one already. And Alan is saying about the version of the app. Yes, that's right, Alan, to do the fullness of what I've described here today, it is that what we call the platinum version, which is the 319 that I quoted just a moment ago. And Paul is suggesting, just because clients have smartphones doesn't mean they use them fully or want to use them. What makes them want to use the app? Paul, that's the sort of thing that's going to get unpacked much more through a one-to-one walkthrough, I would suggest, for the sake of everybody's time on today's webinar. It's a good question to ask, but there's a very robust answer to it, and there's more than 250,000 clients of other accounting firms that we've built these for already using these tools day in, week out. So we can support you and give evidence and scenarios to help with that answer, but it's a fair question to ask. And Z is asking a question that I haven't answered. Sorry, Z, if I've missed that in the midst of everything else, I'll find it for you in just a moment. And is it compatible with Workflow Max? Yes, there's two different ways in which that would work, Sally. There is the practice side of what you're doing, in which case that's not so much the app because the app is client facing. And then there's the getting the information from the app to import into it, in which case, yes, that process is possible as well. And Philip is asking about the tailoring. Philip, the tailoring is made for each firm. So each of you would have your own totally customized app, and then each of your clients that download it will see the same version of the app that's been created. And the other questions, let me just come down to some of these. I hope these are helpful to you folks as we're going through. Remember, you can still continue to write free trial or quick start, whichever one suits you best as we are going through. Looks like a number of these questions have been answered by answering other people's questions as well. And that's great. Wonderful. Folks, let me just search back through because it looks like I might have missed a couple of your questions that have come through, and I will leave the questions box open whilst I'm doing so you can continue to write either the free telephone walkthrough or the quick start offer, whichever suits you best. Now, bear with me just while I seek here for the question that I think I've missed from somebody, and let me see if I can answer that for you together in this live environment store. Oh, Z, I see. Yes, you're asking about the functionality in your app at the moment. That's fine. Yes, you're going to get that. So sorry, folks, Z is already a client going through the process of having his app built at the moment. Z, yes, you're going to get all these things in the package that you've chosen, and they'll be available when your app goes live as well. That's great. Hopefully that supports the question. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. I know we've run 10 minutes over because we've been answering these questions so far. Oh, sorry, Oliver, there's another one that's come through. Let me answer this one as well then. I've asked a couple of times why VAT is not being done first, as we're already having to file quarterly online. Oliver, I don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. We are trying to work to provide solutions. The revenue are choosing the order that they're delivering these things into at the moment, and that is a good question along with many others that flow out of that same thought process, but this is the order in which they are doing things at the moment, I'm afraid. Simon, can I give you a special offer for an iPhone? Great question, Simon. I remember your note from before. Yep, we'll talk about that when we speak next, I'm sure. Remember, folks, you're going to get a resource pack from this webinar and a copy of these slides as well to talk through, which will be great as we go ahead and do the trial and the quick start, as many of you are asking for both of those things at the moment. And the free trial that we work on with you won't expire. So we'll begin it quickly from now so that you get the value from that, but the trial itself won't expire. Folks, I shall leave this all open for a little while longer as you're still typing in. Thank you again for attending today. It's been wonderful to speak with you, and I shall look forward to talking with each of you again in the very near future. Take care.